Chapter 7. Public Opinion. Boontown, the county seat, was so small that the uninitiated were apt to call it a village, but it was not too small to be without that mysterious and uncontrollable voice, usually called public opinion. Public opinion on this occasion was wakening from a long, long sleep. For some years public opinion had expressed itself only at elections and similar unimportant and formal functions. But, when the news arrived that the murderer of Old Benton was in town and in jail, the man whom the district attorney had arraigned beforehand with terrible eloquence in the little Boontown newspaper, public opinion wakened with a start, yawned forth a growl from some 400 throats, and stretched its 1,000 arms to find something on which to vent its rage. For public opinion is a blind beast, even when it wakens. The maladministration of officials, the legal cruelties of business oppression, and business betrayals are very apt never to reach the sleepy ear of the creature. But it may suddenly start up to yell itself hoarse with applause, because a politician gives birth to a neat phrase. Then it falls asleep with a grunt and a smile, when the lucky fellow bows his thanks and dips his fingers in the public purse. This great, stupid beast, public opinion, having long slumbered in Boontown, now aroused itself with a roar and called for a victim. And on this occasion there was some justification for noise. The district attorney had called attention to the brutality of the crime, to the youth of the murderer, to the white-haired feebleness of the murdered man. Finally, the district attorney had declared his intention of suppressing such crimes, of ending the reign of violence in that violent county, of bringing in a golden age of peace, by hanging this red-handed devil, called Jack, from the highest gallows. A good beginning, he pointed out, was 9/10 of a good ending, and a good example was the better part of a good beginning. The broken neck of Jack was to furnish the good example that would, thereafter, make crime hang its head and slink away from the precincts favored by the presence of the district attorney. It may be gathered that he was a very young man to hold such a very old office. Fitzpatrick Levine was one of those who loved the practice of criminal law, and he loved the prosecuting end of it, because, he said, that end was morally cleaner. In reality his love for the attorney's office was like the love of the barbarian for the sword. Fitzpatrick Levine liked to kill. His summing up to a jury was delivered with both violence and relish. He expanded his naturally meager inches, he became huge and dominated a courtroom, while he was whipping a victim toward death. He never recommended mercy to a judge on any occasion. In appearance he was small, rather plump, with clear, red cheeks, a childishly smooth brow, and eyes of sparkling brightness. He was a favorite among ladies, young and old. Among men he was highly prized for his contagious good cheer and his thrilling anecdotes, generally about his own experiences, because, as he was fond of saying, a man generally talks best about himself. He was about 27 years old, but he seemed 5 full years short of that age, and his youthful appearance was a tremendous advantage to him. When, with fiery indignation, he assailed a criminal in the court, the jury felt that so young a man, with so smooth a brow, must be filled with legal inspiration to use such violent words. He spoke with a sort of indignant virtue that was wholly convincing. He could make 12 honest men sway and stiffen with him. And, when he turned and shook his extended forefinger at the accused, 12 pairs of eyes would generally turn and glare in the same direction. No one would understand, No one could be expected to understand that this Apollo-faced man was consumed with a fanatical zeal to sacrifice a fellow creature on the altar of justice. Fitzpatrick Levine knelt at only one shrine. This was his percentage of convictions. He worshipped that God, and he prayed to it. He dreamed of a time when his picture would appear in some metropolitan newspaper, setting forth the record of that brilliant young lawyer, Fitzpatrick Levine. But Boomtown did not act, as Levine's legal experience in other parts of the country had led him to suppose it would act. No, it rose up and seized guns and rushed to the jail and demanded that the murderer of old men should straightway be handed over to it, to be torn limb from limb. From a window of the hotel the young district attorney stared thoughtfully down upon this troubled sea before the jail. What oil could he throw upon the waters? Not that he cared for the life of Jack Montaigne, but Jack represented a sure conviction. If the mob rent him limb from limb, a scalp, that should hang at Fitzpatrick's belt, would be gone. He went down and waded through the mob to the jail. Cries accompanied him, "Give the skunk to us, Fitz. We'll teach him manners. Feed him out the window to us, Fitz. We'll teach him." Fitzpatrick Levine reached the door of the jail. Two pale-faced men, with double-barreled shotguns, guarded the prison, but they were not the force which held the mob at bay. That force the district attorney found in the office, a large quid of tobacco bulging his cheek, his heels cocked up on the desk. The sheriff rolled dull, contented eyes toward his visitor. "Hello, Levine," he said. "Kind of noisy, ain't they?" Levine despised the sheriff, and the sheriff knew it. The sheriff despised Levine, and Levine knew it. Consequently they were extremely amiable on all occasions. "But," said Levine, consternation in his face, "aren't you going to do anything?" "About what?" Fitzpatrick saw visions of the murderer torn from the jail, a conviction hopelessly lost. It was like a conspiracy, and the sheriff would not raise a hand. "About the mob," declared Fitzpatrick. "Are you going to let them take him?" "Take nothing," replied the sheriff. "They know me, son. If you don't like the noise, go out and quiet 'em. You started all this with your talk in the paper about white-haired innocence and youthful brutality." "Well," said Levine, "I only told the truth." "Did you ever know Benton?" "Not exactly." "Well, sir, he was exactly a devil. He didn't have one corner of a good deed tucked away in his makeup." "You can lay to that. But there's your mob, Levine. What are you going to do with it?" "You're not afraid they'll get him, then?" asked Levine, immensely relieved. The sheriff laughed softly. "Sooner than see them get him, I'd arm the prisoner, son." "But what could you do?" "Wait till you see him, Levine. He's a man. With him at my back, well, there ain't any use talking about it, because the crowd ain't going to bust any doors down. They'll just holler out there and have a good time. If I get an earache, I'll just go out and clear the street. Otherwise, it don't amount to nothing." Levine walked to one side, pondering. As the sheriff had said, he had raised the crowd. What should he now do with it? An idea leaped into that young and surprisingly fertile brain. First he seized two officers of the law, such as he usually liked to have with him on similar occasions. They were both broad and correspondingly small of forehead and brain. With them he went to the cell of the prisoner. He waited outside, until his two worthies had secured the arms of the prisoner with handcuffs. Then the district attorney led the way to a back room of the jail, a small room fenced in with almost soundproof walls. Here Jack Montaigne was seated near the wall, with an officer on either side. "You heard that racket outside?" asked the district attorney, taking his stand with spread feet before the prisoner. "And you know what it means?" "They want me," asked the prisoner, and yawned. The yawn startled Levine. "And," he said ferociously, "they'll probably get you, and you know what that means." "Tolerable well." "There's no use in talking," said Levine. "We can't afford to have the jail attacked and risk the lives of law-abiding citizens to protect a worthless dog like you. There's only one thing that'll quiet that mob, and that's to know that the law is going to finish you up in its own way and its own time. There's only one way that the law can be absolutely sure of you, and that's through a confession. You understand?" Montaigne nodded. "Now," said Levine, "I don't mind telling you that you haven't a chance, and you're going to hang. Everything is against you. I could hang 10 men on what I have against you. It's only a matter of time and legal formalities which have to be gone through. So the best thing for you, all around, is to let me have a full confession. I can make things pretty miserable for you, my friend, if you hold out. But, if you talk out and tell the whole story, I'll see that you live on the fat of the land, up to the last day." He smiled generously on his prisoner and went on, "Besides, there's no sense in this fool silence of yours. You won't tell your name, except to call yourself Jack, you won't give the name of the town you come from, and all this is really evidence against you. A man who is afraid to have the law know his past is a man the law handles without gloves. Will you talk, Jack?" "I'll talk," said Jack Montaigne. The district attorney sighed with relief. In another minute he had spread out a pad on his knee, for shorthand was included in his accomplishments. "Start in," he said, "where your story begins to be different from what Slim and the Zellers have sworn to." On a previous occasion he had listed all the sworn facts to Jack in a vain effort to elicit a confession.